How did an IQ test ruin my life? I only took the IQ test because they were paying $50 and I needed gas money. I was a solid C student with a school counselor who literally told me to consider clown college, so my expectations were pretty low. The test itself wasn't even that hard, which should have been my first warning. I finished in 40 minutes when they'd said it would take 2 hours. The proctor looked confused when I handed it in and asked if I was giving up. I said no, I'd answered everything, and she made this face like she didn't believe me. 20 minutes later, 3 researchers rushed into the waiting room looking at me like I'd just solved world hunger. The lead researcher said there must have been a scoring error and asked me to take a different version. I said sure as long as I still got paid, because gas prices weren't getting any lower while we stood there. This one felt even easier somehow, and I finished in 35 minutes. The researchers were whispering frantically in the corner, and one kept staring at me like I might spontaneously combust. The lead researcher came over and said, "You just scored 198 on the Stanford Binet, which puts you above the 99.99999th percentile." I laughed because that was the funniest thing I'd heard all week. She wasn't joking, and suddenly everyone wanted to study me. They brought in specialists who made me take 5 more IQ tests. Every single score came back between 195 and 210, which apparently meant I was smarter than Einstein. I told them Einstein probably knew what year World War II ended, and I just failed that history quiz yesterday. My parents were called in for a meeting where the researchers used words like profound genius and once-in-a-generation intellect, while my mom kept saying there must be some mistake. She reminded them I'd once tried to microwave aluminum foil and nearly burned down our kitchen. They said genius manifests in mysterious ways, and I said yeah, like getting D's in physics. MIT called our house offering me early admission with a full scholarship. Harvard wanted to fly me out for a special program. The local news wanted to do a story about the small-town genius nobody had noticed. My principal suddenly acted like we were best friends, even though last week he'd called me Brian when my name is Mark. But nothing had changed about my actual intelligence. I still couldn't understand calculus, and honestly wasn't even sure what calculus was for. When they gave me advanced problems to solve, I just stared at them wondering if this was how my dog felt when I tried to explain why he couldn't eat chocolate. The researchers couldn't explain it either. They tested me for everything from photographic memory to hidden savant syndrome. My brain scans showed completely average activity. When they asked me to explain my thought process for solving the test problems, I couldn't, because I literally just picked whatever felt right, like choosing lottery numbers. My teachers started treating me differently, expecting brilliant insights I couldn't provide. They'd call on me for the hardest questions, and I'd sit there like a deer in headlights. My classmates either avoided me or tried to get me to do their homework, which was hilarious because I was copying off other people myself. The testing got more invasive and honestly pretty weird. They hooked me up to machines while I took tests and monitored my brainwaves. They took blood samples and did genetic testing looking for mutations. One researcher was convinced I was unconsciously accessing collective intelligence, and I asked him if that meant I was basically using cosmic Wi-Fi. I started refusing to take more tests, but the pressure intensified. The school threatened to sue my parents if I didn't participate in their gifted program. Researchers showed up at our house uninvited, including one who tried to collect my garbage for DNA samples. Someone leaked my scores online, and conspiracy theorists started saying I was everything from an alien hybrid to a Russian experiment. Then I overheard 2 researchers arguing about my case. One said the scores were impossible given my academic history, which yeah, no kidding. The other said they'd tested me in isolation with different proctors, and the scores stayed consistent. Then she mentioned something that made me actually pay attention for once. She said they'd found 3 other cases exactly like mine in different states. Average students who suddenly scored impossibly high, but showed no other signs of genius. All of them had started within the same 2-week period, and all described picking answers that just felt right without knowing why. I went home and searched for the other students. They looked as confused as me in their photos with headlines calling them hidden geniuses, but I noticed something the articles didn't mention. We'd all taken the same viral personality quiz 2 months ago from some sketchy website my friend had shared. I still had the confirmation email from the quiz. The site was gone, but the domain was registered to something called the Cognitive Enhancement Institute. I found one archived forum post that said, Phase 1 subjects identified and marked for extraction, which sounded like something from a bad sci-fi movie I'd probably fail to understand. My phone rang with an unknown number. When I answered, a voice said, "We know you figured it out," and gave me an address. I said, "Figured what out? Because I literally don't understand anything that's happening," but they'd already hung up. Full story on the channel below.